Hello and welcome to another video on MyPlasm CNC version 1.0.7a. More updates to come. All right. So let's go ahead and move off into actually bringing a part into our MyPlasm system and turning it into a cut file. Now there's two different ways to do this. There's multiple file types that you can bring into MyPlasm. Today we're going to be talking about two different file types. One of them is going to be DXF, that's your traditional CAD file, and the other one is going to be the .tap file, which is exported from MyMini-CAM because up until recently, the MyPlasm system didn't offer a nesting feature in this software. It used the nesting features from, let's say, another CAD program, and then MyMini-CAM is great because it's an external nesting program that allows us to bring all of our files together and process it into a G-code file, and this system here will actually understand the G-code file and run it for us, as well as give us the ability to use the parameters and the special features of the MyPlasm system. So we're going to be dealing with .tap files, which is what MyMini-CAM will export, and then we're going to be talking about the DXF files as well. But in order to bring a part into MyPlasm, we need to go ahead and click on this button, the Import File button, funnily enough. Gotta love the Import File button, seems pretty self-explanatory. Let's click on that here. And we're brought up into this screen. Now, since version 1.0.7a came out, they've added the MyMini-CAD feature. And this is a great feature that allows you to design your own parts within the program. It's a very basic CAD software that they're still developing out. So we're not going to release anything until we see a little bit more development on the MyMini-CAD module. But it does have a lot of great potential right there. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a file. This is a .tap file. This is something that came out of MyMini-CAM. MyMini-CAM generated this file. And you'll see down here that I have a preview of it here. I can also choose this one here, but we're going to go with this one here. This is test number 1. We could use test number 1. That's great. It gives us the dimensions, 4 inches by 4 inches. I'm just going to go ahead and click on the dice file here. Once I have my dice file selected, I can bring that in to my screen here. Looks great. Everything looks to be correct. You see little numbers here stating what number file it is, 21, 22. It's going to do things in a given order here. I'm moving around my screen by scrolling in and out, and by holding the scroll button, I can actually move it around my screen here and get a little better view. But again, I'm counting off my different pierce points here. The red dots represent the pierce points for the file, and then you'll notice that these files have little tiny lead ins and lead outs as in accordance to the file that was made. This is made in MyMini-CAM and then brought over here as G-code. So it looks good according to my screen here. I have the option here I can rotate it and move it around if I wanted it to be turned in any which way. I can absolutely rotate it any which way. Now, for the sake of this first video, I'm only going to be importing one file and then going to cut it. We're going to also do another video after this that talks about bringing in multiple files and cutting it this way as well. I can always undo a function. I can copy and paste, so I can actually duplicate this file if I wanted to. But for right now, because we made this in MyMini-CAM, everything is essentially set to go. So I'd bring this .tap file over into this screen, and once I have it oriented the way that I want it to be oriented, I won't worry about any of these because this is something that you would use on something that wasn't made in MyMini-CAM. MyMini-CAM, once you have that .tap file, so once you've ran your post processor from MyMini-CAM, it will have all of your offsets, your lead in, your lead out. You won't need the CAM part of this software. This is already all set for us. So we just hit the check mark and it imports the part onto the screen. Using our up, down, left, right arrow keys, we'll put our torch into position. Once we have our torch into the place that we want it to be, so let's say based off of my table that's running, I could, let's put that's where the bottom corner of my material is. I want to hit the 0 position here. Boom, it's going to move my part and everything in relation to this table here. We'll notice my dotted line is my table. And I can't really zoom out any further than I already am here, but that's my table. Okay. Yep, that's about as far as I can zoom out. All right. So once I've set my bottom 0 position, I just hit play. And now it's going to go through the cut. I know that was a surprisingly small amount of time, but this is done after you've done all of your work in CAM, for instance. Let's go ahead and showcase a file where we actually have to do the CAM work in the MyPlasm system. It's a useful setup. Let's go ahead and head on over there. But first, I want to hit stop, and we'll move on here. Okay, so we're going to go back up to the import button here. Let's go ahead and click import file. Great. I'm going to hit the EX button here. This is example file, and it opens up these options here. So we have PLTs, TXT files. I mean, we have a lot of different file types in here. All of them are either G codes or DXFs or what have you that we'll be working with. For the most part, most of our designs that we bring into this, at least a lot of customers, will be using DXFs. So I'm going to go ahead and select a file here. Let's choose, a couple of good options here. That's a barbecue grill. You know what? Let's go ahead and go with the doggy one. Why? Because why not? All right, so what I want to do is go ahead and we're going to import that file over by hitting this button, not this button. Import the file over. Beautiful. Okay, so the file's there. Right now it's 6.5, well, a little over 6.5 by a little by 8.25. I don't necessarily like that size. I'm just going to go ahead and increase the size here. Let's go. Yeah, let's just go with that here. Ooh, that is definitely not what I wanted. That is a little bit too big. That is 12 times the size that I actually want it to be. Let's go ahead and change this down. Let's reduce that to half the size, 0.5. Okay, that's a little bit better. That's at least within my 48, just over my 48 by 48. I'm going to set this up to, I don't know. Let's go ahead and go with, let's go with a smaller number here. You know, we're probably just going to go down by 0.4 and bring that down there. Okay, good, 15 by 19. That's a little bit more in the area that I want it to be. Now, because this is a CAM file here, we're going to go ahead and, this is not a CAM file. Because this is a DXF, we're going to open up the MyMini-CAM module. So I'm going to click on the Use MyMini-CAM. This will allow us to put an offset on our system. So if you'll recall from a video back, we had talked about kerf width here, 0.053. We need to put that offset on our system here. So I'm going to go ahead and open this back up. We're going to use an outside offset that's going to place the torch on the outside of the outside parts and the inside of the inside parts here. And we're going to do outside offset here. So let's go ahead and put the tip width at 0.05 there, 0.055. Let's go with 0.055. And if I zoom in here, we'll notice that there's this little tiny offset. The green being the CAD file, the purple being the, the purple being the art file, and the green being the cut file. It's going to put the torch on the inside, which is definitely something we want to do there. My lead in and lead out, I can increase the size of my lead in and lead out if I want to. I'm going to set it to 0.25 for my lead in. On the whole, you'll want to make sure that your lead in is equal to or greater than the thickness of your material. So with 16 gauge, which is what we're going to be simulating here, being 0.0625, I think 0.25 is definitely enough, if not a little bit more than excessive. However, the MyMini-CAM actually gives us a couple of good options in terms of when it sees that a lead in and lead out is going to be too long for a given part, it's actually going to shrink down the lead in and lead out to match so that we can at least get the finer details with a lead in and lead out. So it's a useful little feature that they have that keeps you from, let's say if it was a 1/2 inch lead in, lead out, it won't move the lead in and lead out outside of this line. So that is good. Everything looks good on this part. All right, so we have our outside offset, we have our lead in and lead out. Sequence is cutting from the center, so it's going to start in the center. If I were to guess, yep, this is the centermost portion of the file here. This is cut number 1. It's going to start there. We can change our sequence. We can change where it starts from, whether it's going to be from the top rightmost file. It's actually going to start right there, you know, what have you. That's where you can actually adjust your sequence, or you can always go in and make adjustments. Right click on different points to change where your lead in and lead out is going to start from. You have a couple of basic options with this. So again, I'm right clicking in my parts to change the location of the lead in and lead out. Oh, that's looking great. Okay. Oh, that's looking good. All right. That being done, we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark here because I think this is exactly where I want everything to be. Yeah? Do I think so? Yeah, I do. Actually, you know what? Let's say, for instance, that there's a part that we don't want to cut. Let's say I know that the plasma cutter is going to cut this, but it's not something that I necessarily want to cut. It's not going to be something I want to do. I can actually click on that part there, and I should be able to disable that line, meaning that this part of the CAD is not going to be cut. So if there's something extra you forgot to delete out of the part, you can always go in and disable one of those lines. Let's see another example here, number 11. Let's go ahead and remove that, disable that there. Perfect. It's now not going to cut that because there are a couple of details that I just didn't want to cut, because when the plasma cutter cuts it, I know it's not going to realize it in the way that I want it to be realized. Okay, that looks great to me. We're going to hit the check button here. Perfect. So now we have our file. We can move our torch wherever our 0 is going to be. I'm going to move that. Let's say move it down to there, and probably move it down to over there, and hit my 0 point here. Boom, there we go. Now we're all set. Okay, oh, I love it. I love it. All right, now I can hit play, and it's going to go ahead and move through the part. That's how this works. Now, while it's cutting, I can adjust my THC if I need to, or I can just watch the part, make sure it's operating exactly the way that we want it to. Okay. Now, let's say we had full access to our table area and we wanted to adjust the location of this cut. I can always, and it's going to light up red when I try to move this outside of the actual cut area. So if I try to move this art file outside of the cut area, now I'm right clicking to move this around. If I move it outside, it's going to scream at me telling me, hey, you're not in the cut area of the table, and that's a problem. But I can move this down to here. Let's say bottom left-hand corner-ish. Perfect. I can hit stop, and then I'm going to hit play. It's going to move down to that position and actually start cutting from this new location. It's a fun way to move around a part on the screen, which will relate to where it is on the table, because we see here, this is a 4x8 table. Actually, this might be this is a 5x10 table that I'm working on here, and this is in the bottom left-hand corner of that 5x10. So if I want to manually move that, I'm going to hit stop, and I want to move it. Let's say I know that I have space right here on my 5x10 sheet. I can move this over here rather than, let's say, measuring it out and cut from there. So there you go. That's how we get started with all of this for a single cut. In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about duplicating parts, nesting parts in MyMini-CAM here. And then, of course, you can watch sheet cam videos as we have online as well. And we'll be adding more specifically in relation to how it interacts with MyPlasm.